Hi everyone, old guy here, and you can call this video a poet because it is going to be a long fellow. Feel free to use that dad joke anywhere that you want and understand that it applies to many different situations. Okay, so what I'm doing is the 10 best novels I've ever read, at least so far. There's not a lot of criteria here, except these are novels that, after reading them, still remain with me. There are scenes that are still vivid, and I still think about the book from time to time or something that happened in it. That's it. So, number 10, The Forgotten Door by Alexander Key. John, a child from another world, falls through a portal and ends up on Earth, where he endures the fear and suspicion of a prejudiced town. I've mentioned this novel before in probably a couple of videos. I read it first when I was 13 or 14, when a lot of very bad things were happening in my life, and the last scene of this book still haunts me. I wanted to step through that hidden door and live in John's world. It was so much better than this one. It still is. I have not read it since then, and no doubt if I did, would find that it's quaint and simplistic and juvenile. But it gave me hope and a longing that I still indulge. Number 9, Knee Deep in Thunder by Sheila Moon. Maris and a motley gang of bugs, yes, bugs, go on a quest to save a magical land from an evil force. This is another one that I read when I was 13 or 14 in the midst of all those bad things happening, and the last scene of this book, where Jetsam disappears down the beach, has also stayed with me, but not out of hope or any kind of longing, oh no, out of loss. That everything you love will be lost eventually, which of course is not Moon's intent or message, but is the one that I derived. The beauty of books. You can find your own meaning. Number 8, The Winds of War by Herman Wouk. A sweeping family saga of World War II. Yes, I know, not one book, but two. The second one being War and Remembrance. And they made a pretty good mini-series out of it also. I have yet to find another World War II story that so well captures the massive shock and upheaval of that event, of that conflict. Everything and everyone in this book changes, and not always for the best. The scene at the Auschwitz gas chambers is one of the most chilling and revolting ever written. Number 7, Vanishing Point by Michaela Rosner. One night, 90% of the world's population simply disappears. 40 years later, the surviving 10% are still trying to cope. This is a sci-fi novel that leans post-apocalyptic, so I differentiate it from the next book on the list, which is pure sci-fi, and I guess this leaves me enough wiggle room to declare this one and the next one as the two best sci-fi books I ever read. Rosner never explains what happened, and I freaking love that. Deal with the situation and move on, if you can. Number 6, The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell. A Jesuit priest makes first contact with a race of aliens located near Alpha Centauri. This is a mind-blowing story about faith and cultures and what happens when two completely incompatible groups meet, without realizing they are incompatible until it is too late. One of the most successful depictions of a completely alien species that I've read. And the sequel, Children of God, ain't no slouch neither. Number 5, the Baroque cycle. I think it's back there behind me somewhere. Quicksilver, The Confusion, The System of the World by Neil Stephenson. An epic, sweeping, gargantuan, and overwhelming, world-striding mess of a story that covers Europe from the time of the English Civil War through the Glorious Revolution. As told by a boatload of characters, from Sir Isaac Newton to Half-Cocked Jack, who gains the appellation through a rather unfortunate accident, this is history made palatable and gripping, and yes, I know, a trilogy, not a novel, but once you start with Quicksilver, you'll become so immersed in this crazy story that you'll swear it was just one novel. One really big novel, so pack a lunch. Number 4, Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. A couple of aging cattlemen decide to move their ranch from Texas to Montana. Yes, the miniseries was epic, but does not hold a candle to the novel, which belongs to the dying West genre. Increasingly irrelevant cowboys take a stand for a rapidly fading way of life. This one, though, gilds no lilies, and the casual brutality of the frontier will make you glad you live in modern times. Mostly. Number 3, Sometimes a Great Notion by Ken Kesey. In post-Korean War America, an estranged son returns to his home at the request of his half-brother to help the family break a logging strike. This and the next entry are the 2 great American novels, at least so far. While everyone knows Ken Kesey from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, this one is far superior. A mesmerizing tale of a completely dysfunctional family who is forced to pull together in the face of a town's hostility. The Stampers are defying a lumber strike by delivering wood to the local mill, earning the enmity of neighbors and union organizers and pretty much each other. Not an easy read because Kesey took the James Joyce approach here, and you'll get viewpoint changes sometimes in the middle of a sentence, but it is definitely worth your time and effort. Number 2, East of Eden by John Steinbeck. A retelling of Cain and Abel with 2 sets of brothers a generation apart reprising the roles. This is post-Civil War America and its broad, mad rush to become itself. A generational saga that begins with probably the most awful father you'll find outside of a Faulkner novel. The first set of brothers, Charles and Adam, fight that father and each other in an effort to break free and establish themselves. Adam ends up in the Salinas Valley and marries probably the most evil character you'll find outside of a Stoker novel, leading to the next set of brothers, Caleb and Aaron, and their subsequent tragedy. Talk about the 3-generation curse. And number 1, Play Your Piano by Kurt Vonnegut. An engineer leads a revolt against a dystopian society. Now, you knew Vonnegut was going to creep into one of my lists somewhere sometime because the guy is just unique, in a category by himself like Jack Vance. Now, everyone thinks Slaughterhouse-Five is his opus, but no, it's this one, which is more of a straight-up story than his later completely absurd novels like Cat's Cradle and God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater. There is still a lot of delightfully absurd writing in this novel, especially when Vonnegut is describing the sounds that machines make. In a dystopia run by corporations where corporate life is all, the individual can only exist within prescribed corporate rules and approval. Break the rules, you are dismissed, or worse, never promoted. but at least that's better than being in the Army or the Reclamation and Recovery Corps, the only two options for anyone who is not an engineer or a manager. This was written in 1952. Yikes! And I have left out other novels, such as The Martian Chronicles and The Crystal Cave and Alas, Babylon. But 10 is 10. So I guess what I need to do is start another list, say the best 10 books I ever read besides the other 10. We'll see. Old guy here. See you later.